Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Everything Within podcast. I'm your host, Alina Krasnojon. This podcast is all about empowering you to build an extraordinary, fulfilling life and tap into the limitless potential that resides within you. Thank you for tuning in today. In today's episode, we will talk about self-trust and how to develop that inner knowing that guides us through life's uncertainties. Often, the biggest obstacle between you and your dreams isn't a lack of skills, but a lack of belief in yourself. Self-trust is a foundation of confidence, resilience, and authentic living. It's about tuning into your inner wisdom, honoring your intuition, and finding the courage to act on it. But in a world full of noise and external pressures, how do we build this crucial trait? Today, I will share practical strategies and techniques to help you to cultivate an unshakable self-trust. I also share my own struggles with building self-trust, and I hope that you will find some valuable insights for yourself in this episode. Self-trust is something that I struggled a lot for the biggest part of my life, and I still struggle with it sometimes, but with doing the inner work, developing more awareness in my life, and practicing self-trust constantly, it became easier to trust myself and to take action from the place of self-trust and not fear, doubt, or lack. Let's get started. Growing up, I was raised in an environment where the opinions and judgments of others were considered more important than my own. In a culture where children were rarely encouraged to express their thoughts openly, I absorbed the belief that others knew what was best for me, especially adults, teachers, and so-called experts. I often silenced my voice, thinking they must know better than I do, right? So I need to stay silent and do what I'm told. But as I got older, I noticed that many of those same people were following other people's expectations, following a perfect life template, weren't truly happy with the lives they had built. This realization planted the seed that there should be another way of living a life and that there was a huge value in trusting myself. If you struggle with low self-esteem or deep emotional wounds, developing self-trust might not come naturally to you. It wasn't easy for me either when you were constantly raised to please everybody around you, to change your behaviors, to fit in, to be liked or loved. But if you're serious about learning to trust yourself, you have to be willing to question nearly everything. Your beliefs, emotions, and behaviors, especially those you've adopted unconsciously through your life. This process isn't just challenging. It's often painful. Why? Because many of these ingrained patterns shape your self-identity and sense of who you are. Admitting that some of these beliefs don't really serve you anymore can feel like tearing apart the very fabric of your being and feel like your old self that you've built over the years is dying. It can be very scary. Here is the key insight. You don't experience the reality as it is. You experience it as you are. Your external world is a mirror reflecting your internal beliefs about yourself. If you believe you're limited, your experience will confirm that. But if you believe you're expansive, the world will open up in ways you never imagined. Changing your self-image requires deep introspection, consistent action, and the courage to rewrite your internal narrative. Remember, self-trust isn't built overnight. It takes time, and the journey can be messy and filled with a lot of self-doubt. But with patience and persistence and practicing to act from the place of self-trust, you will reach a point where life starts to flow more effortlessly. Everything in your external world is a reflection of your internal world. So if you'd like to change your external reality, you need to start with changing your internal reality. Everything starts within. You need to remove all layers that prevent your unique, authentic self from expressing itself. Give yourself a permission to be exactly who you are and let others to be themselves as well. Don't wait for other people's validation. Don't wait for them to define you, because at the end of the day, the only validation you need is from you. Without investing in self-development and without doing the inner work, trusting yourself can be challenging. Your judgments may be clouded by unchecked biases and limiting beliefs, potentially steering you away from your true goals and aspirations. Most of the beliefs, behaviors, and emotions often aren't your own. When you start developing self-trust, it can be hard to do for the first several years of your life. You will feel lost, feel like you're not making any progress, but it's okay. It takes a lot of conscious effort and time to start changing your self-image and the way you see yourself. But once you pass these 3, 4, 5 years, and if during this time you practice self-trust on a daily basis, if you always do what you promised yourself you're going to do, trust your intuition, listen to your inner voice, at some point you will feel that life kind of becomes effortless, flows, and that you can start finally trusting yourself more and do the things you have always dreamt of. It's ultimately what you're working towards. You would like your life to be more effortless and flow instead of being in a constant state of fear, doubt, resistance, and self-consciousness. Can you imagine the amount of energy you will free up when you can live every day and act with self-trust? You need to do what you say you're going to do. Not for somebody else, not for validation or approval, but for yourself. You need to show up for yourself and do what you promised yourself you're going to do. Without it, it will be very hard to trust yourself. The more you do it, the more you start to rewire your mind, and self-trust starts to come naturally. You don't need to wait for somebody else's permission to pursue the thing you know you want to pursue. The only permission you need is your own. Deep down inside, you know exactly what you have always wanted to do. You have always known, but most likely were too scared to act on it because you didn't really trust it yourself that you can actually do it. Self-trust will help you to feel more confident, more present, more willing to take action automatically, when this action will come from the place of a deep self-trust. Trust comes from consistently showing up for yourself and honoring your commitments, no matter the external circumstances. When I began my self-development journey, I had almost no self-trust. I constantly sought out experts to tell me exactly what to do, but no one else can do the inner work for you. It's your journey to walk. Working with coaches helped me a lot, but even then, I often put their opinions above my own, believing they knew what was best for me. The biggest transformations in my life came when I decided to trust myself, when I realized how much power I gave away to somebody else when I could empower myself instead. Whether it was moving to another country without a plan, starting my own business for more meaning and freedom, or shifting careers from language teaching to website design. Each of these decisions were scary and filled with uncertainty. But trusting myself through these moments made all the difference and empowered me to take control of my life. It took me years of questioning myself, doing the inner work, and taking action to finally start trusting myself at least a little bit. When you don't have a proof that you can trust yourself, your mind will never believe it and will keep searching for external validation instead. Building self-trust is a lifelong journey, but it's a skill you can develop with practice. It starts with tuning into your intuition and following what feels right for you, not what external circumstances dictate. Don't fall into the trap of saying, I will trust myself when I have more money, or I will be happy once I achieve that goal. True self-trust comes from accepting yourself as you are right now, by believing that you have what it takes to reach your dreams. This process can be painful at times. We often set unrealistic expectations for ourselves, leading to frustration, overwhelm, and discouragement. But meaningful change requires time and a lot of emotional labor. So it's crucial to be patient and consistent in your efforts. Remember, you improve at whatever you do consistently. It's important to remember as well that the identity you created now is just the collection of memories, emotions, life experiences, and thoughts. And you have the power to change it in every moment. For this, you need to be aware of your unhelpful and unconscious behaviors, emotions, and thoughts, To be able to catch yourself every time you think a negative thought or feel a negative emotion, or when something is triggering you, come back to the present moment and keep taking focused and deliberate action. Because when you're lost in your emotions and thoughts, you cannot really take focused and meaningful action. It creates a state of helplessness, sadness, and it's very hard to take action from this place that will bring you any kinds of results. Journaling and meditation helped me a lot with bringing many of my unconscious behavior patterns to conscious and start building self-trust. By doing these practices regularly, I started to see tremendous improvements in my life. Then it's, of course, up to you to find the techniques and practices that work for you, but make sure that you do find some techniques and tools to help you to do it. You need to be deliberate about it and practice constantly. Changes won't happen on its own. It's your responsibility to make them happen if you're really serious about changing your life and finally build that self-trust. There are some other things you can try to do to help you to build self-trust. Make a list of triggers, those situations or voices, internal or external, or triggers that cause you to second-guess yourself or erode your self-confidence and self-trust. Increase your awareness about them. Respond to your inner critic with compassion. Notice when the inner critic gets loudest and learn to respond to it with compassion rather than self-judgment. Learn to separate yourself from this unhelpful voice inside of your head and keep taking action. Get in the habit of cheering yourself on for small wins intentionally, acknowledging your strengths and validating your efforts. Don't wait on external validation. Provide it for yourself. Celebrate self-trust, milestones like following through on commitments, even if outcomes are imperfect. The fact that you followed through your commitments is already huge. Identify areas where you struggle with self-doubt and create intentional challenges to exercise the self-trust muscle. For example, if you lack trust in your decision-making, commit to make X number of decisions solo, without second-guessing and without relying on somebody else's piece of advice. Document instances when you did listen to your intuition and it led to positive outcomes as reassuring evidence. It will help to show your mind, to prove it, that trusting yourself is the best thing you can do. Reframe your self-trust mistakes as learning opportunities rather than confirmation of your inadequacy. Notice when you're making choices primarily to gain approval from others rather than staying true to yourself. Practice saying no firmly, especially to things that are in conflict with your values and your priorities. Perfectionism often stems from lack of self-trust, as in one's inherent capabilities. Learn to embrace and find beauty in imperfection. View failures or mistakes as a getaway to self-compassion, not a source of shame. Did you know that self-trust is closely linked to increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area of your brain responsible for decision-making, emotional regulation, and planning? When you trust yourself, your brain is better able to weigh risks, manage stress, and approach challenges with clarity. On the other hand, chronic self-doubt activates the amygdala, your brain's fear center, triggering fight or flight responses that cloud your judgment. Building self-trust not only empowers your decisions, but literally rewires your brain for greatest emotional resilience. Embrace vulnerability for greatest self-trust. Vulnerability can be uncomfortable, but is essential for building self-trust. Brené Brown, a leading researcher on this topic, says that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's our most accurate measure of courage. By allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you open up authentically and grow. When you let go of the needs to be perfect or always right, you build the courage to trust yourself even in uncertain situations. Self-trust grows when you embrace your imperfections and take action anyway. Here are the short exercises to help you to connect with your intuition and building self-trust. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes and take deep breaths, letting go of any tension with each exhale. Visualize a situation when you recently doubted yourself. Picture it clearly in your mind. Now imagine what it would feel if you fully trusted yourself in that moment. Notice how your body feels when you replace doubt with trust. As you inhale, say to yourself, I trust myself. As you exhale, let go of any lingering doubt. Repeat this for a few times, anchoring the feeling of trust in your body. Practicing this exercise regularly will help to reinforce self-trust as a natural response to anything that might be happening in your life. Self-trust isn't viewed the same way across cultures. In some Western societies, individualism is celebrated, and self-trust is seen as a path to personal freedom. In contrast, more collectivist cultures might prioritize group harmony over self-assertion, viewing trust in the collective or elders as most important than self-trust. Understanding these cultural differences can broaden your perspective and help you navigate where your self-trust aligns or challenges cultural norms. It can also help you to understand how the culture you grew up in influenced your relationships with self-trust. Developing self-trust often leads to taking calculated risks, which are essential for growth. When you trust yourself, you're more willing to step into the unknown, knowing that even if things don't go as planned, you will handle whatever comes your way. This ability to take risks with confidence is what often sets successful people apart. They see failure not as setback, but as a stepping stone. A common myth is that self-trust means never doubting yourself, but even the most self-assured people experience doubt. It's human. The key is not to let doubt paralyze you. Another misconception is that self-trust means always being right. In reality, it's more about trusting your process and being willing to course correct when needed. Psychologist and author Nathaniel Branden once said, "The first step toward challenge is awareness. The second step is acceptance." This is key to building self-trust. It's not about always having the right answer, but about cultivating awareness, accepting where you are, and trusting that you can navigate whatever comes next. Feedback can be tricky, valuable, but sometimes hurtful. Learning to process feedback without letting it erode your self-trust is crucial. The goal is to filter feedback through your own values and wisdom. Take what's helpful and let go of what wasn't aligned with your truth. This practice strengthens your self-trust while still allowing you to grow from others' perspective. Over the next week, try to commit to making at least one decision completely on your own, whether it's a small daily choice or a bigger life decision. Resist the urge to seek external validation. Reflect on how it feels to trust yourself and not the outcome. Notice how it feels in your body. Each time you do this, you're reinforcing the inner foundation of self-trust. Thank you for listening. I'd love to hear about your own journey with developing self-trust, so feel free to share your stories and insights with me. Until the next time, bye!